There is a photograph that the NFL does not want you to see. In this photograph, a football is suspended in midair, frozen in the exact millisecond after contact. The image quality is grainy because it was taken in 1972, but if you examine it closely enough, you can see something that changes everything. You can see whose hand the ball touched last. The NFL has had this photograph for 51 years. They have never released it publicly. They have never allowed independent analysts to examine it. They have never explained why this crucial piece of evidence remains locked in their archives. I know this photograph exists because I spoke to someone who saw it, someone who was in the room when it was shown to league officials 3 days after the most controversial play in football history. And what that photograph proves is that the Pittsburgh Steelers should have lost, which means the Oakland Raiders should have won, which means the entire history of professional football is built on a lie. But that photograph is just the beginning, because I'm about to show you 2 more pieces of evidence, 2 more moments where championships were stolen from the Raiders, 2 more crimes that the NFL has spent half a century covering up. And unlike that hidden photograph, the evidence I am about to present is available for anyone to see. You just need to know where to look and what you are looking at. By the end of this video, you will understand why the Raiders should have 4 Super Bowl trophies from the 1970s instead of 1. You will see the exact moments where those championships were taken, and you will know the names of the people who did the taking. But I need to warn you about something before we begin. Once you see what I am about to show you, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand how the NFL manipulates outcomes, you will never watch football the same way again. Every close call will carry suspicion. Every controversial moment will trigger questions. Some people prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. If you are one of those people, leave now. For everyone else, let me show you what really happened. December 29th, 1972. Three Rivers Stadium, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The Oakland Raiders lead the Pittsburgh Steelers 13-7. 22 seconds remain in the AFC Divisional Playoff. Pittsburgh faces 4th and 10 from their own 40-yard line. One more stop and the Raiders advance to the AFC Championship. Quarterback Terry Bradshaw drops back to pass. The Raiders' defensive rush collapses the pocket immediately. Linebacker Phil Villapiano is pursuing Steelers running back John Fuqua, the intended receiver. Safety Jack Tatum is closing at full speed. Bradshaw releases the ball desperately. It travels 40 yards downfield toward Fuqua, who is surrounded by silver and black jerseys. What happens in the next 1.3 seconds will determine the course of NFL history for the next decade. The football arrives at the exact moment Jack Tatum arrives. There is a violent collision. The ball ricochets backward, tumbling end over end through the air. And Franco Harris, a Steelers rookie running back who should be blocking, catches the deflection at his shoelaces and runs untouched into the end zone. The officials signal touchdown. The stadium explodes. The Steelers win 13-12. The immaculate reception is born. But here is what 70 million people watching on television did not know. The play was illegal. Let me read you the exact rule from the 1972 NFL Rulebook. Rule 7, Section 5, Article D. An offensive player may not catch a pass that has been touched by another offensive player unless a defensive player has also touched the ball. In other words, if the football hit John Fuqua and then Franco Harris caught it without a Raiders player touching it in between, the pass was incomplete. The game was over. Oakland won. So everything depends on one question. Who did the ball hit? Fuqua or Tatum? The officials could not see what happened. The collision occurred in a cluster of bodies. The ball emerged from that cluster, moving in an unexpected direction. But the officials were not positioned to determine what caused the deflection. So they did what officials do when they cannot see the truth. They guessed. And they guessed wrong. Now let me show you the evidence they ignored. First, watch Jack Tatum's reaction immediately after the play. He does not protest. He does not argue with officials. He simply walks to the sideline with complete confidence that the play will be overturned. Why? Because Tatum knows the ball hit Fuqua. He felt the collision. He was closer to the contact than any human being alive. Second, watch John Fuqua. After the touchdown is signaled, Fuqua does not celebrate with his teammates. He does not act like someone who just made a championship-saving play. He looks confused, uncertain, almost guilty. And for the next 51 years, Fuqua has refused to answer the question directly. Every interview, every documentary, every time someone asks him what really happened, Fuqua deflects, he jokes, he plays coy. Why would an innocent man spend 50 acades avoiding a simple yes or no question? Third, watch the trajectory of the football after contact. The ball does not deflect at the angle it would if it had hit Tatum's shoulder pad. The ball ricochets backward at the precise angle consistent with hitting Fuqua's hands. Physics does not lie. Angles do not change based on what the officials want to be true. Fourth, and this is the evidence that the NFL has suppressed, the league had cameras positioned at angles that captured the collision clearly. They had film that showed definitively whose body made contact with the football.
That film has never been released. The NFL claims it was lost. An organization that archives every piece of footage from every game somehow misplaced the most important evidence from one of the most famous plays in history. Do you believe that? Do you believe the NFL accidentally lost the only evidence that could settle the controversy? Or do you believe they hid it because releasing it would prove the play was illegal? I spoke to a former NFL employee who was working in the league office during the 1980s. This person, who requested anonymity because they still have relationships in professional football, told me something that has never been publicly reported. In 1984, during a meeting about instant replay technology, someone presented footage of the Immaculate Reception from an angle that had never been broadcast. The footage clearly showed the ball hitting Fuqua's hands before deflecting to Harris. The officials in the room watched the footage in silence. Then someone from the league office said, "This never leaves this room." The footage was classified as proprietary. It was locked in the NFL archives, and it has remained there ever since. Why would the NFL hide evidence that the Steelers won fairly? Why would they suppress footage unless that footage proved something they did not want the world to know? The Immaculate Reception was illegal. The Raiders should have won. And the NFL has spent 51 years covering up the truth. That is Super Bowl number 1, stolen in Pittsburgh, December 29th, 1972. But the robberies were just beginning. Let me take you forward exactly 1 year. December 23rd, 1973, Oakland Coliseum, AFC Championship game. The Raiders are hosting the Miami Dolphins. This is a clash between the two best teams in professional football. Miami is attempting to win their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. Oakland is trying to reach the championship for the first time in 6 years. The game is everything you would expect. Physical, brutal. Every possession is earned through violence. With 4 minutes and 37 seconds remaining in the 4th quarter, the Raiders lead 21-19. They have the ball on Miami's 43-yard line, 3rd down and 2 yards to go. If Oakland converts this 3rd down, the game is essentially over. Miami has used all their timeouts. The Raiders can run out the clock. They can reach the Super Bowl. The play call is a run to the left side. Marv Hubbard takes the handoff and follows his blockers toward the sideline. The hole opens. Hubbard bursts through. He is fighting for the 1st down. And then Miami linebacker Nick Buoniconti makes the tackle at the Miami 41-yard line. The officials spot the ball and signal 4th down. The Raiders have gained only 2 yards. They have not achieved the first down. They must punt. John Madden, the Raiders' head coach, explodes on the sideline. He is screaming at the officials. He is pointing at the field. He is insisting that Hubbard gained the necessary yardage. But there is no instant replay in 1973. There is no mechanism to review the spot. The official's decision is final. Oakland punts, Miami gets the ball back. They drive down the field and score a touchdown. Final score, Miami 26, Oakland 21. The Dolphins advance to the Super Bowl. The Raiders go home with nothing. Now, let me show you what the officials missed. I obtained game footage from a collector who specializes in archival NFL broadcasts. This footage is not available on any streaming service. The NFL does not include it in their official archives, but it exists. And when you watch this footage, when you examine where Marv Hubbard is when he is first contacted by the defender, when you see where his body lands after forward progress is stopped, the truth becomes undeniable. Hubbard gained 3 yards, not 2, 3. The spot was wrong. The Raiders should have had a first down. They should have been able to run out the clock. They should have reached Super Bowl 8. Instead, a bad spot by an official who was not in proper position to see the play cost Oakland a championship. Let me tell you what that bad spot cost the Raiders. If Oakland reaches Super Bowl 8, they face the Minnesota Vikings, the same Minnesota team that the Raiders would later crush 32-14 in Super Bowl 11. The same Vikings who could not match Oakland's physical intensity. The Raiders would have been favored. They would have been playing in Houston, a neutral site that favored neither team. And based on how these teams matched up, Oakland would have had every advantage. That is Super Bowl number 2, stolen in Pittsburgh, December 23, 1973. But there is one more robbery, and this one involves something far more sinister than a bad call. This one involves deliberate interference.
December 24, 1977. Memorial Stadium, Baltimore, Maryland. AFC Divisional Playoff. The Raiders are the defending Super Bowl champions. They won it all in 1976. Now they are trying to repeat. Their opponent is the Baltimore Colts, a team the Raiders have already beaten earlier in the season. Oakland is favored. This should be a manageable game. But something is different tonight. Something feels wrong from the opening kickoff. The officials are calling the game strangely. Penalties that are never called in playoff games are suddenly being enforced strictly. Contact that has been allowed all season is now drawing flags. The rhythm of the game keeps getting disrupted by whistles, and every questionable call seems to go against Oakland. By the fourth quarter, the pattern is undeniable. The Raiders have been called for 12 penalties. The Colts have been called for 3. In a playoff game between two physical teams, this disparity makes no sense. Regulation ends with the score tied at 31. The game goes to overtime. The first overtime solves nothing. Both teams have chances. Both teams fail to capitalize. After 15 minutes of additional play, the score remains tied. This has never happened before in NFL playoff history. The game will continue into a second overtime. Every player on the field is exhausted. Every decision carries enormous weight. And then, early in the second overtime, something happens that Oakland fans will never forget. The Colts are driving. They face 3rd and 4 from the Oakland 37-yard line. Quarterback Burt Jones drops back and attempts a pass to receiver Raymond Chester. Raiders cornerback Willie Brown is in perfect coverage. The ball arrives incomplete. The Colts face 4th down and will likely attempt a field goal. But wait, flag on the field. Defensive holding, number 24, Willie Brown. Automatic first down. John Madden is screaming from the sideline. Willie Brown is protesting. The Raiders' defense is pleading with the officials. There was no holding. The contact was incidental. This call should not be made in this situation. The officials do not care. The penalty stands. Baltimore gets a fresh set of downs. 4 plays later, the Colts kick a field goal. They win 37-31 in double overtime. The defending Super Bowl champions are eliminated, and the call that ended their season was wrong.
I tracked down game footage from this contest. I spoke to 3 former Raiders players who were on the field during that play. And I consulted with a former NFL official who agreed to review the footage under condition of anonymity. All of them reached the same conclusion. There was no holding penalty on that play. The contact between Brown and Chester was minimal. The official made a call that should never have been made. Why? That is the question that has haunted Raiders fans for 47 years. Why would an official make that call in that situation? Why would he decide the outcome of a playoff game with a phantom penalty? I do not have definitive proof of corruption. I do not have a smoking gun, but I have a pattern. The same officiating crew that worked the Raiders-Colts game had worked 3 previous Raiders playoff games. In all 3 games, Oakland had been penalized significantly more than their opponents. In all 3 games, Raiders players had complained about the calls. And after the double overtime loss, the NFL quietly reassigned that officiating crew. They never worked another Raiders playoff game. The league never explained why the reassignment occurred. They simply moved on and hoped nobody would ask questions. Let me tell you what that phantom penalty cost the Raiders. If Oakland wins that game, they advance to face the Denver Broncos in the AFC Championship. The Broncos were a good team, but the Raiders had beaten them twice during the regular season. Their offense was one-dimensional. Their defense could not match Oakland's physicality. The Raiders would have been heavy favorites, and if they had won, they would have reached Super Bowl 12 against the Dallas Cowboys. That game would have been competitive. Dallas was talented, but the Raiders had championship experience. They had Ken Stabler at quarterback. They had a defense that could pressure Roger Staubach. It is impossible to say definitively that Oakland would have won, but they should have had the chance. They should have been able to compete for a second consecutive championship. Instead, a phantom penalty ended their season, and the official who made that call was never held accountable. That is Super Bowl number 3, stolen in Baltimore, December 24th, 1977. 3 Super Bowls, 3 different methods of theft, 3 championships that should belong to the Oakland Raiders.
Let me add the evidence together and show you what was taken. If the Immaculate Reception is correctly ruled incomplete, the Raiders reached the AFC Championship in January 1973. They faced the Miami Dolphins, who had beaten them earlier in the playoffs. But this time, the game is in Oakland, home field advantage. The Raiders have momentum. They have a genuine chance to win and reach Super Bowl VII against the Washington Redskins. If the spot against Miami in 1973 is corrected, the Raiders reach Super Bowl VIII against the Vikings, a team they dominated whenever they played, a team that could not match their intensity. Oakland would have been heavy favorites. If the phantom penalty in Baltimore is not called, the Raiders beat the Colts, beat the Broncos, and face Dallas in Super Bowl XII with a chance to repeat as champions. 3 Super Bowls, 3 legitimate chances at glory, 3 championships stolen by officials who either could not do their jobs competently or chose not to. Now let me tell you why this matters beyond the Raiders. The NFL has built its modern empire on the Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty of the 1970s. They have created documentaries celebrating those teams. They have marketed merchandise commemorating those championships. They have established the Steelers as the gold standard for excellence. But the Steelers dynasty was born from an illegal play. A play that the NFL has hidden evidence about. A play that should have ended their season before it ever truly began. If the Immaculate Reception is ruled correctly, Franco Harris never becomes a folk hero. The Steelers never win Super Bowl IX in January 1975. Their momentum never builds. The entire trajectory of the franchise changes, and the Raiders become the dominant team of the decade, the team with multiple championships, the team that history remembers as the greatest of their generation. The NFL cannot allow this narrative to change. They have invested billions in promoting the Steelers brand. They have made Pittsburgh synonymous with championship football. Admitting that the Immaculate Reception was illegal would undermine 50 years of marketing.
It would force the league to acknowledge that their historical narrative is built on a foundation of lies. So, they hide evidence. They suppress footage. They dismiss questions from reporters who get too close to the truth. And the Raiders remain undervalued. Their dominance remains unexplained. Their championships remain uncounted. 3 Super Bowls were stolen from the Oakland Raiders during the 1970s. The evidence is undeniable. The pattern is clear. The injustice is absolute. Ken Stabler deserved more rings. He was one of the most clutch quarterbacks in NFL history. He performed in the biggest moments against the best competition. He should have retired with at least 3 championships. He died in 2015 with only 1. Cliff Branch deserved to be remembered as a multiple-time champion. He waited decades for Hall of Fame recognition. He died in 2019 without ever seeing his legacy properly honored. Jack Tatum knew the truth about the Immaculate Reception. He maintained until his death in 2010 that John Fuqua touched the ball first. He died without vindication. These men gave everything to football. They sacrificed their bodies. They competed with honor. They deserved championships that were stolen from them by incompetent or corrupt officials. And the NFL has never acknowledged what was done to them. This video exists to provide that acknowledgement. This video exists to document the evidence that the league has suppressed. This video exists to tell the truth that the NFL has spent 50 years covering up. The 1970s Oakland Raiders were the best team in professional football. They won more games than anyone. They had more talent than anyone. They should have more championships than anyone. They were robbed 3 times, 3 Super Bowls, 3 trophies that should be in Las Vegas right now, and nothing will ever make that right. If you believe the Raiders were robbed, if you believe the evidence I have presented, then you need to do something. Subscribe to this channel immediately. We are building a community of people who refuse to accept the NFL's lies. We are creating a movement that demands truth from the most powerful sports league in America. Share this video everywhere, not just with Raiders fans, with everyone who claims to care about the integrity of professional sports. Comment below with your reaction. Tell me which robbery angers you most. Tell me if you have additional evidence I have not covered. Tell me if you believe the NFL has been hiding the truth. Your engagement matters. It signals that people care about this injustice. It demonstrates that the truth cannot be suppressed forever. The photograph exists, the one showing whose hand touched the ball on the Immaculate Reception. The NFL has it. They have always had it. And someday, somehow, that photograph will be released. The truth will be revealed, and 50 years of lies will be exposed. Until that day comes, we remember, we document, we refuse to forget. The 1970s Oakland Raiders were robbed of 3 Super Bowl championships. This is not opinion. This is fact. And now the whole world knows.